Hello, everyone. My name is Karthik, GSEO co founder.
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Ucher, CEO and the founder of this GSEO.
And today we are here to interview Shashank. So, he's a rising junior at UT Austin, pursuing a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science and Business Honors. As a graduate of Basis Chandler, he has conducted influential research on detecting gastric cancer using casual relationships and machine learning. Today, we will ask him about his research experience, internship experience, and high school university journey.
And yes, this incredible person is here with us today. Without further ado, shall we dig and learn more about him? So yes, Shashank, can you briefly introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my name's Shashank Ganta. I'm going to UT Austin. Um, I guess you guys summed it pretty much about what I do academically. On a more like social side, I love playing sports, watching sports. I go play pickleball and soccer a lot, but yeah, that's basically it.
Okay, that's great to hear that. I also like soccer personally. Yes,
Mhm.
so moving on to our research part question. So I was able to find from your LinkedIn profile that you have done and you have conducted a lot of research at Arizona State University. Like, how did you actually get your position there? Like, did you coordinate professors at that university, or was the opportunity given to you from your high school? Like, how did the process work
Yeah,
out?
so what I did is I just went up to ASU's like Professor Page, found a few professors I
Oh,
liked, and then I basically just cold emailed them and then would send them my resume, and then from there onwards, I continued the conversation.
oh yeah, that's very great. And one of the research that you have conducted at Arizona State University was gastric cancer using causal relationships and machine learning. And I know to many of like our audience watching this podcast or interview might not be familiar with this term and with this research topic. So can you please like elaborate more on your this research paper in simple terms and in simple English that anyone can
Yeah.
actually understand?
Yeah, so basically what the gist of it is basically so is that we had about 4,000 different proteins given to us from a biology lab. And each
Oh,
protein would have some number that represented its threshold in gastric cancer, meaning that like say a sample did have gastric cancer, that protein would result in a high number. If it didn't, it would result in like zero point a low number basically. So
okay.
what our job was is to reduce it down to 10 biomarkers of proteins because in a lab you can't really test out all 4,000 manually just because that's not feasible. So our job is to limit down to 10. And so what we did is we employed a causal relationship. All that means is we check to see which biomarkers, which means those individual proteins, are the most causal or cause the most like highest correlation with a gastric cancer case. And using like a mathematical formula we derived, we found a set number of 10 biomarkers, and then we would train different machine learning models with those 10 biomarkers, and then that resulted in a statistically relevant model.
Oh wow, that's actually very incredible. How
Thank
old
you.
were you when you actually did this research? May I know about it?
Um, I'd say 16.
16. Oh wow. How
Yeah.
did you find your interest at this like cancer area using your machine learning knowledge? Like
So
I
actually
really
the
curious.
yeah, so the summer before that, I took this course at MIT called BeaverWorks. And there's this
Oh,
one class called Metalytics where it was about using machine learning with like medical data. So using that, I kind of got interested through that, and then I just continued that train.
oh wow. That's impressive. And apart
Thank you.
from this research paper, you also have done something like what's called like PyReason, and you have done some
Yeah.
development and documentation of that. And like, what motivated you to work there, and what
Mhm.
impact do you believe that that development and documentation of PyReason can actually have in that
Yeah,
field?
so the main motivation for that was that I finished off the biomarker project using like the causal relationships. And PyReason also uses some of those same concepts that I used before. So my professor thought that it would be a good like next step. So that was kind of the motivation that I went through. And then kind of the hope it has is it's very useful to make new kind of connections in AI that current systems don't really do. So my hope with my lab was that just to kind of like push PyReason further and try and get more companies to use it and kind of gain traction on it.
Oh wow. And I know that for a lot of audience watching this podcast might not be very familiar with pi reason. So can you
Mhm.
briefly like explain what pi reason as
Yeah,
well in a
so what pi reason does essentially is it helps in a neural network. There aren't exactly that many symbolic connections. So what pi reason does is it helps makes those different connections with different nodes in your neural network, and it's a graphical way to represent that. So basically, it allows
oh,
for better interpretation of results.
oh, that's very interesting. And yes, again, like the another research that you actually also did was using AI to analyze satellite imagery data in
Mhm.
just pager settings. What influence do you believe that this research paper had on your academic interest and on yourself personal? Like,
Yeah,
did it
so
personally
one of the
like
biggest
yes?
things Yeah, so one of the biggest things that just gave me like a bigger grasp of like the different models there are for AI, for example. And this one I use CNNs, which are convolutional neural networks, as opposed to like my biomarker research was mostly just like random forest trees. It was mostly decision trees. But this kind of gave me exposure to different types of neural networks and just AI overall. So it really helped me kind of get that larger grasp of AI in general.
Very interesting, very interesting. So, uh, yeah, like doing some AI and a lot of like very complicated research, I believe that there must be some challenges for you that you might have faced during
Mhm.
your research projects. Like,
Yeah.
what were some of like the biggest challenges or problems that you might have faced during your research uh, process, and how did you overcome those challenges?
So a lot of challenges that I faced were a lot of them sometimes could be like say a paper that my research had to be like based off of was a bit like too hard for me to understand, or if I just had some questions on some like underlying principles in those papers. The main way I would like overcome these is I would first just do my own research, try and expand on the topics covered in that paper a bit more, just like a simple Google search. But if I was still struggling, I would always just contact my professor, and then he was able to kind of guide me through the process and explain to me any topics I needed help
Oh,
with.
wow. Yes, right. That's very interesting again, I swear. So using like what we can actually reach out, you're able to like gain
Yeah,
some
yeah.
knowledge and clarify your
Yeah,
questions as well. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
exactly. The biggest thing was just reaching out to my professor and just like asking any questions that arose.
Yes, right. Okay. And now you're majoring at UT Austin in computer science.
Correct.
So how has this research experience prepared you for the academic rigor and
Mhm.
expectations at UT Austin?
Yeah, so I guess kind of the biggest thing is just that the research just kind of showed me more the academic perspective of like computer science. Because a lot of computer science obviously focus on commercial uses it uses in like companies. This kind of showed me the more academic perspective, and in general, it just gave me a better grasp of like actually implementing computer science in a more meaningful manner rather than simply just like say side projects.
Okay. I believe that there must be some like future research papers that you might want to work on in the future. Like, is there
Mhm.
any like research papers that you are currently working on, or any research topics that you have in your mind right now that you wish to pursue in your future?
Yeah, so currently speaking, there's not that much research just because I've been working on other projects and like other internships. But later on in the future, I'm sure there'll be some AI related projects that rise up just depending on like what's currently a problem or just what's happening around say UT Austin.
Mm, okay. And watching this podcast or interview, there are actually a lot of high school students interested in starting their own research projects. What
Mhm.
advice would you actually give to those students interested in starting their own project?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is just obviously first shoot your shot and like try out doing your research on your own. And one biggest thing though is you have to make sure it upholds to industry standards. So like for example, you can't just make some program that you understand, but if say another professor or student looks at it, they won't understand. So one of the biggest things is make sure that your code and your paper is up to like guidelines and all that. That way it's actually acceptable in like the scientific field.